So our next speaker is Klara Fejer. Despite being born and raised high above sea level, nobody in Klara's life was surprised that her pursuits took her to the ocean. From boat rides to deep-water dives, Klara takes any opportunity she can to connect with water. It is with this passion that she hopes to continue making an impact on the conservation of our natural resources through imagery and science communication. The name of Klara's presentation today is Enhancing the Wild, a film about repopulating ocean fisheries.
This story could have been a binge-worthy 8-part series. After dozens of interviews, multiple opinions, and countless hours of piecing it all together, I had a 3-hour monster I was getting ready to present to you today. Enhancing the Wild is a film about a novel $40 million replenishment program attempting to increase the white sea bass population off the coast of California. This project involved an eclectic blend of stakeholders, ranging from fishermen to pathologists, who've all come together to tell you about this beloved fish species, to inform you about the desire and resources necessary to restock them, and to ask you to get the conversation going about whether or not we should.
Dude, solid. Way to give us all hope. He caught one, yeah, 60-pounder.
My name is Mike McCorkle, and I've been a commercial fisherman now for 65 years. And I've fished white sea bass for probably over 50 of those years.
It's not just a sport, it's a lifestyle, and it's also a way to supply yourself and your family with seafood that you catch on your own, which is important. That's the most sustainable way to catch fish.
It's definitely something that I eat, breathe, and sleep daily. I love fishing for them, and I love eating them, and so I spend a lot of time we're out fishing for them today.
It tastes like chicken. It's real good to eat. You've eaten sea bass, I'm sure, so far, have you?
I don't think so.
No, how embarrassing.
I make probably 50% of my income in some years on white sea bass fishery. So white sea bass is really important to me.
It's one of my favorite things to fish for. They're kind of sneaky where they go and what they do, but when you do any fishing, commercial fishing, for a number of years you figure out fish, and it makes it easier for you to catch them.
White sea bass are really important recreational and commercial species off California. They're highly valued both as a game fish and a commercial product. The populations have kind of fluctuated over time, and some of the declines have been attributed to overfishing. When I was growing up, it was very rare to catch a white sea bass around here. It was almost unheard of, actually.
My name is Mike Shane. I'm a research scientist and the director of Fisheries Replenishment for Hub's SeaWorld Research Institute. Our organization is a nonprofit organization started by the founding fathers who were building SeaWorld at the time. The work that I focus on is the Ocean Resources Enhancement Hatchery Program that is funded by the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
ORHAT began in 1983 by the California legislature to do experimental research on the possibility of enhancing certain marine stocks.
The species that was selected back in the early 1980s was the white sea bass. So at our marine fish hatchery in Carlsbad, we have wild-caught brood fish that spawn in captivity. And then at the hatchery, in about 3 months, we tag the fish there until a little chip is put into their cheek. And then they're distributed to grow-outs, pens run by volunteers. And this is unique for any stock replenishment program, not only in California, but in this country.
I'm really not a fisherman. I'm more of probably a conservationist, if you will, but it's something where people come down here and participate in this as a citizen scientist, and it's really interesting stuff, and we really feel like we're doing something worthwhile.
In 2017, an independent panel of scientists conducted a review of the ORHAP.
What Sea Grant did is we worked with Department of Fish and Wildlife to identify scientists who had no conflict of interest with the program or with hubs. And through time, it took, it took two and a half years to get through, to put the evaluation together. So it's very, very thorough.
ORHAP has contributed a lot to our knowledge about marine enhancement methods. Unfortunately, it was shown in the independent evaluation for white sea bass that enhancement hasn't been effective to date.
We've obviously learned a lot with this program, and the science review, pointed that out, that we definitely did a good job with what we had funding-wise and over the 30 years, while the enhancement hasn't, come out through less than 1%. We definitely have created a pathway, and we know what it takes to do it and grow fish and be successful. It's just, it's going to need funding, and that was certainly pointed out as one of the recommendations.
The program is funded by two funding sources. We have the ORHAP Enhancement Stamp Account.
I'm a native of Southern California, and I've been purchasing the California license since I turned 16. So I am a lifelong, by default, donator to the ORHAP program.
The stamp goes up every year. Well, every time it goes up 50 cents or something, support guys squawk about it.
The stamp account usually brings in anywhere from $1.1 to $1.3 million a year. And then also we receive federal funding from the Sport Fish Restoration Grant.
It was meant to be kind of an experimental program, a research program. Can we assess the feasibility of enhancing this population? And it depends who you talk to, but if you're reading the original legislation, it doesn't really come out and say, and you need to do that, you need to enhance it.
In terms of general impact from the program, front and center has been pathology, because anytime you raise fish in captivity, it's probably reasonable to expect some fish would survive that might not normally otherwise. But is it okay to release those fish into the wild and have them potentially breed with wild fish? We don't know. We know a lot of these fish have contracted viruses that were not found in the wild population. And Hubs has employed geneticists to look at that in more detail.
Well, you can't release those sea bass into the ocean, in my opinion, because the sea bass in the ocean don't have diseases like that. They make comments, well, just let them go. The weak ones will die and the strong ones will survive. Just let them all go. Well, that isn't the way it works according to the pathologists. And they get all different kinds of sicknesses, of buggy eyes and deformed maladies in their body, and just different things happen to them.
What about these bumps and lumps and growths? Are these normal? Does this come about in trout and salmon? And they said, you know what? Nobody looks. So we don't know. It could be a normal phenomenon for hatchery fish, or it could be an abnormal phenomenon. We don't know because people don't look. And the thought is they don't look because they figure if it's weakening the fitness of the fish and the fish gets released, it's just going to get eaten, right? It's not going to survive. It's going to get gobbled up. So that's kind of the running view in these enhancement programs, from my understanding.
Just to be clear and open, any marine fish, freshwater fish for that matter, that's cultured around the world, there are malformations as part of the culture process.
Hubs boys all screaming that, they just have orbital bone disease, that won't hurt, let's release them, blah, blah, blah. I don't want anything released unless it's healthy.
Where do we think a lot of these problems in this fish are coming from? One of the things that could be is that, you have this heavily industrialized and polluted lagoon, And that could be playing a role in this too. Agua Hedionda is one of, if not the most industrialized lagoons. Certainly San Diego Bay has heavy industrialization, militarization. And if someone were to tell me tomorrow that they found that was the cause of the problems with some of the fish in the grow facility, I don't know that I or Coastkeeper would be surprised.
There's also the gillnet sampling that's gone on since the late 80s. I worked at Hubs until 2008, and up to that time, there had been roughly 250,000 fish caught. And that's pretty controversial because commercial gillnets were banned in the early 90s because of bycatch associated with nearshore species. Since then, we've seen improved stock status of white sea bass, for example. But at the same time, the Hubs program has been using small-scale scientific gill netting in nearshore habitats in bays and estuaries and kelp forests.
The gill nets are pretty unique things. Everybody thinks they kill everything, and, that's not really true. That the gill net is really designed on the species you're trying to catch. That's why they're very efficient.
Anything caught in those gill nets are scientific data. If you're talking about commercial fisheries, you're talking of tons or tens of tons or hundreds of tons, and it's a much smaller scale than that. So the impact of their sampling on fisheries, the white sea bass and other fisheries, I would say, is fairly negligible.
If that helps to produce another million or so wild fish that wouldn't have otherwise been there, is it really such a bad thing? So I don't know for sure whether the hatchery program is really working and benefiting us as far as the white sea bass fishery goes. However, I don't think that it's a negative impact either. I think it's a good thing all around, if even just for the awareness that it's built for thousands of people that like to go fishing in Southern California.
It's a fabulous concept. It's a wonderful idea. They've been doing it for 30 plus years. If it was truly successful, you'd think we'd see some success.
It amazes me that this isn't more widespread.
So thumbs up for enhancement. Yeah, we were a little off, and maybe the survivorship has been a little bit better. We're making it better. So let's continue to learn and grow on this program.
Next question.
All right. Thank you, Klara. So we have some questions coming in. The first one is from Dustin in Imperial Beach. Did your research find that the marine protected areas around the San Diego area help the repopulation of the fish population?
There's a lot of speculation about what helps and what doesn't help with the repopulation of the white sea bass. As we said, the banning of gill nets, nearshore gill nets for commercial fishermen in the early 90s was definitely a big piece of it. MPAs have been proven to be effective when it comes to the conservation of different fish species, but at the end of the day, we really need more information before we can officially answer questions like that. But marine protected areas, in essence, keep fish species healthier, keep certain catch limits at bay, and ultimately can effectively help the improvement of a fish species.
And are there any other enhancement programs attempting to do similar things as what you documented in this film?
Yes, there are. There are a number of different enhancement programs around the nation, actually, and that's a great question. A lot of them are involved in different fish species and have different success rates than the ORHEP program does itself. For example, Texas includes the white drum or the red drum. South Carolina is doing a cobia enhancement program as well that is similar, but with different species. So many different resources need to be involved. So much different research needs to be evaluated, because at the end of the day, cobia, abalone, these different fish that are coming back to their same spawning aggregations or laying relatively docile in the substrate are much easier to research than white sea bass are.
Great. And then the last question we have is, why do you think Hubs is still feeding resources into this program despite 30 years without enhancement?
Another great question. White sea bass is a very important species, both recreationally and commercially, and so many people want this program to work. Fishermen, scientists, pathologists, even the people who might not think the program as itself is working currently, they want it to work. They want white sea bass populations to increase over time. And with more funding, with more education, with more research, it is possible that perhaps someday they could see better enhancement rates. And at the time, they're just really trying to do whatever they can to see some success at the end of the day.